Welcome back to the deep dive. Today's mission takes us into a surprisingly rigorous account of environmental urgency and cooperation. We're looking at a very specific winter phenomenon. We are examining source material that details an event known as the Candy Cane Ascent, which took place deep inside Maple Hollow Park.
And the scene that the observers, Max and Mia, paint for us it's immediately immersive.
It really is.
This is December. The first snow has already fallen.
And it's not just a snowy day, right? The landscape is described as a peppermint postcard.
Exactly. Everything is sparkling, glittery. It even smells like winter spice.
It creates this this unreal atmosphere.
And that atmosphere is the perfect backdrop for a truly bizarre discovery.
Okay, so what did they find?
Max and Mia saw something near the forest line that it challenged every assumption you'd have about, plants. They saw a row of trees, these skinny, very unusual trees, and they were actively climbing uphill, inch by inch. Yes. The sources say they moved as if they had invisible feet, using their branches almost like anchors.
Wow.
And crucially, these aren't just objects. The sources establish right away that they are communicating conscious entities. They're on a mission.
A migration that seems to defy physics and botany as we know it.
It really does.
So our deep dive today, it has three main goals. First, we need to unpack the extraordinary reason for this vertical climb. Then analyze the high-stakes urgency behind it.
And most critically, I think, we have to dissect the ingenious collaborative techniques they used when the observers stopped just watching and actually jumped in to help.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the actors themselves. These are not your regular pine trees.
No.
These are the candy cane trees. And their physiology is, it's completely unique.
They're perfectly named, aren't they? The source notes that their trunks aren't bark, but are distinctly striped red and white.
Right. And their branches are described as being curled like peppermint hooks.
Which, if you look at what happens later, clearly serve as a kind of specialized climbing gear.
For gripping, slick, snowy surfaces.
Exactly. Even their leaves, which haven't fully developed yet, are shaped like sugar crystals.
So it's a species that is visibly, adapted for a very specific, I'd say highly aesthetic environment.
And that high specialization means they have to stick to a very rigid seasonal cycle.
This isn't just a casual walk up a hill.
No, it's an absolute necessity. The tallest tree, who's clearly the leader, he immediately lays out the stakes.
Right. He ties their success to a hard deadline. The goal is simple. Get to the top of the hill.
And that deadline is immediate, and it is critical. They have to succeed before sunset.
And the penalty for missing that deadline, that's the source of all this urgency. They explain that if they fail, they won't grow sweet leaves in time for winter.
So this isn't just about, looking pretty. It's about survival.
It's about seasonal completion.
Yeah.
This task has to be done to generate the very sustenance that will see them through the harshest period.
Which raises an important question. What environmental factor is enforcing this specific time limit?
That factor is explicitly named in the sources. It's the impending arrival of the frosting wind.
The frosting wind, okay.
This seems to be some kind of atmospheric event that essentially locks the environment down.
Yeah.
It would freeze their climbing ability and prevent that final essential transformation.
So it's a literal do-or-die scenario enforced by a celestial schedule and a very real environmental threat.
And in a pressure cooker environment like that, you're going to see failure. Or at least, you're going to see exhaustion.
And that's where the narrative really shifts, right? The collective mission is suddenly threatened by the limits of one individual.
Exactly. The sources focus on this moment of crisis.
A small, younger candy cane tree near the back of the line just slips. It starts sliding backward, losing all that valuable ground it had already fought for.
Like a total setback for the mission. And the little tree's confession gives us some really crucial data. It says, I can't climb anymore.
And the reason?
My roots are too tired.
So if we think of their root structure as a kind of high-load muscular system,
Which the sources imply, yes.
then fatigue would manifest as a failure to anchor.
A failure in adhesion. They lose what we might call mechanical purchase against the snow's sheer stress. It's not just an emotional complaint. It's a statement of structural failure under load.
That's fascinating. And that kind of physical failure needs more than just, a pat on the branch.
Right.
But the tall tree's immediate reaction, I find it a little ruthless. He doesn't offer a hug. He just sighs and repeats the sunset deadline.
That's a thoughtful interpretation. But I think the source suggests the two are inseparable.
Oh, so.
The tall tree, the leader, knows the frosting wind is a non-negotiable threat. To stop and console is to risk everyone's seasonal failure.
So the group's objective is the individual's survival in the long run.
Precisely. The solution couldn't be rest. It had to be a practical, immediate intervention to overcome that structural failure.
And that's exactly what Max and Mia provided.
This is the pivot point.
Yes, the observers become participants. They form what the source calls the candy cane climbing crew.
And Mia's immediate, compassionate response will help you.
Yeah.
It didn't just save the mission. It transitioned the whole narrative from observation to integrated problem solving.
They saw that just cheering them on wouldn't solve route fatigue.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, this intervention is a perfect illustration of effective crisis management. They didn't just offer encouragement, they analyzed the physical problem and developed a multifaceted solution.
And this is where we can really deep dive into the mechanics.
Yes.
The solution wasn't one single action. It was this ingenious three-pronged strategy that addressed stability, terrain, and the force required.
Let's break it down. We can categorize the first step as, let's call it foundation stabilization.
Because the initial problem was slippage. The roots couldn't get a secure base on the icy snow. So the crew, Max and Mia, they started packing snow tightly around the tired tree's roots. This is ground engineering.
They weren't just piling it up. They were compressing it, creating a firm, level base. That immediately addressed the structural failure we talked about.
It directly mitigated the effort the roots needed to just stay in place.
Exactly. It's like you can't push an exhausted team member without first stabilizing their environment. They gave the roots a temporary, engineered respite.
Okay, so once that stabilization was addressed, they moved on to the second pillar of their strategy,
Which we can call process modification.
They made tiny steps in the hill.
Think of it as terrain modification. They're changing the environment to match the limitations of the climber. The existing smooth slope was a terrible surface for those peppermint hooks.
So by creating these little platforms, these micro terraces, they gave the trees optimal points to anchor themselves.
Right. The peppermint hooks weren't just decorative. They were biomechanical tools.
And the kids optimized the path for those tools. It's about recognizing that sometimes the process itself, the terrain you're navigating, is the core barrier.
Precisely. And only once the foundation was stable and the terrain was optimized did they introduce the final element.
Direct controlled assistance.
Yes. They tied scarves gently around the trunks so they could pull together.
And the source emphasizes that this was done slowly, safely.
That caution is paramount. It shows sensitivity to the subject's condition.
So this is about load sharing, not just dragging.
It's not brute force, it's shared effort. They were just augmenting the little tree's strength enough for it to use the stable base and the new steps.
And you can't forget the motivational aspect here. While all this technical work is happening, Max is there cheering them on. Climb, climb, climb.
The synergy is key, isn't it? You need the practical assistance and the unwavering motivational support to overcome a crisis like this.
It's a sophisticated model.
Yes.
Stabilize, optimize, and then apply controlled leverage, all while keeping morale high.
And this collective effort paid off at the last possible minute.
It really did. The climax of the story it's just perfectly timed. So satisfying.
A last-second victory. The little tree reaches the top just as the sky glowed pink.
They secured success just before that critical sunset deadline. They avoided the frosting wind.
And the reward was instantaneous. And it was communal.
The moment they reached the summit, the trees chimed like bells.
A sound of collective achievement. And then immediately their branches just burst into their winter resource.
The sparkling sugar leaves that drifted gently through the air like snowflakes.
This immediate visible reward confirms just how critical that ascent was. They fulfilled their seasonal duty.
And the tall tree, who was the voice of urgency before, now he offers the wisdom from the whole experience.
He bows and says, "When friends help each other grow, the forest becomes sweeter."
And that isn't just a sweet moral, is it? It sounds like an ecological statement.
I think so. The success of the individual, which was only achieved through significant community support.
And customized effort.
Right, it directly benefits the entire collective. The little tree growing its leaves makes the whole environment sweeter for everyone.
So it's a kind of shared communal prosperity.
And this fantastical, urgent scenario just dissolves once the goal is met.
Yeah, the sources say the frosting wind swept through immediately after their success, and the whole scene shimmered into a normal snowy hill once more.
Which confirms the whole thing, the climbing, the urgency, all of it, was tied strictly to that narrow, necessary window of time.
Once the purpose was fulfilled, the system just returned to its mundane state.
Which brings us back to the core insights.
The high-stakes imperative of the deadline and the frost and wind.
The ingenious three-pillar solutions from the climbing crew, stabilizing the routes, modifying the terrain, and applying that gentle leverage.
And the immediate, beautiful reward of that collective growth.
It's a powerful narrative about how crisis reveals the need for sophisticated collaboration.
And how true assistance requires more than just good intentions. It needs customized effort.
Exactly.
But after all of that, after the movement stops and the shimmer fades, the human mind looks for evidence, right?
Did this impossible thing really happen?
Or was it just a shared winter hallucination?
And that's where the source leaves us. And it's maybe the deepest insight of all.
Mia found the only physical evidence left behind.
A tiny peppermint leaf inside her mitten. And it's described as being warm and sweet.
Which raises an important question for you, the listener. What is the true, lasting value of that memento?
It wasn't treasure. It was small, warm, sweet proof of a successful shared effort.
So you have to reflect on that.
How often is the simple internal memory of having helped someone overcome a crisis? How often is that the most lasting, most valuable reward you take away?
Even long after the magic or the urgent need has faded.
A truly profound thought to mull over.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the mechanics and meaning of the candy cane ascent. We'll see you next time.